Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Just Listen to Yourself with Kira Davis podcast. I, of course, am the aforementioned Kira Davis, and I want to welcome you back to the show, welcome you back to the FCB Radio Network. I am posting a show a little late this week. I'm sorry. I got to admit to you guys, I'm burned out. I'm not going to lie. I'm burned out. When you do politics for a living, it can get really, what's the word? Friggin' annoying. It can. Everybody's at each other's throats, and I don't have the mental capacity to rage all the time, so I do get a little weary, and this week's been tough. I just kind of been going through the motions, and I wasn't sure what I wanted to talk to you guys about, but I know what I want to talk about this week. Before I move forward, I just want to remind everyone, in case you're new to the show, this is actually the show where I ask you to just listen to some of the things you're saying about popular cultural issues and draw them all the way out to their logical end. Because I think a lot of times we have our talking points, we have them prepared, we know how we want to use them, and we feel like they're intelligent and expressive talking points, but we don't really think about exactly what we mean when we're saying them all the time. So I like to use this show to help you think out all of your arguments or some of your arguments, but also I like to use this show to persuade you, because as talkative and opinionated as I am, I don't like harsh, cruel debate. I can handle it, but I don't like it. I actually prefer persuasion. We used to do that for each other. We used to work to persuade each other. And I feel that way about even the court system here in the United States. I think we've come to depend on the Supreme Court so much, too much. It was a concerted strategy by certain political types in this country for a while. The idea if we couldn't get what we wanted from the people, then we would take it to the Supreme Court, which is an unelected body. And the problem with that is that is a group of unelected judges who are deciding some issues that really belong to the will of the people. And I believe that if you feel strongly that our country should take a certain direction, then you need to voice your opinions in the public square and persuade the voters to vote for what you want. That's what I truly believe. I believe the court has very little place in American cultural dialogue, very little place. We've placed too much emphasis on it. That's why when you have a new judge to be appointed, like Kavanaugh, it turns into an ugly circus. And that's why people get so upset when a judge that they think is too right wing or too left wing gets on the bench. You shouldn't have to be that upset about who's on the Supreme Court. You know, that's 9 unelected people. The Supreme Court was made the weakest branch of government for a reason. They're not elected. If you have issues that you feel are important to society, then the onus is on you to go out and persuade the rest of your fellow Americans that this is the right decision to make at the ballot box. Anyway, this isn't an episode about the Supreme Court and the branches of government, but I just wanted to let you guys know that that's where I'm coming from. I want to persuade you. So some of the things I say may make you angry, may make your hairs raise, but I'm not judging you for not thinking the way I'm thinking. I'm just giving you my point of view and asking you to consider it. Let me persuade you. Okay. All right. I want to talk about white privilege today. And I thought about doing this subject. I've thought about doing it for a while. I wasn't sure how to address it, but I saw this tweet from Chelsea Handler today, and it was just, it really made me think, okay, it's time to explore this issue, exactly what we mean when we're saying white privilege. Chelsea Handler, who's a comedian, in case you don't know, tweeted out this morning, "My new documentary premieres on Netflix soon. It's called Hello Privilege. It's me, Chelsea. It's about me, Chelsea, exploring white privilege. And yes, everyone should watch it, especially you, Mr. President." She's obsessed with Donald Trump, like so many people are. I know everybody's like, he can't stand it when people make fun of him, but I don't know what kind of person are you if you just stand there and let people say whatever they want about you and never respond? None of us would stand for that. These people poke at him every day, and then he responds, and they're like, he's so sensitive. So whatever. Chelsea Handler's got it, bad for Trump. She don't like him. That's fine. But it was the portion where she said she was going to discuss her white privilege that really got me. And it got me thinking, like, who is she talking to? I don't understand this whole white privilege thing. I have tried. I have really tried. But it is beyond me why we as Black people think that this is an argument that is going to make a case for us to be more influential and powerful in the country. And it boggles my mind why white people think that this is an argument that makes them more amenable to us as Black people. So I'm going to break it down, but we have to start at the start, as I like to do on this show. If you've been listening, we have to know what white privilege is. So here's a definition I found online for white privilege. White privilege is inherent advantages possessed by a white person on the basis of their race in a society characterized by racial inequality and injustice. I see so much wrong with that definition already. Inherent advantages possessed by a white person. Well, I might agree with that. There are certainly inherent, I think this definition means inherent advantages, meaning white culture. That's such a vague term because there's so many different kinds of white people. But just for the terms of this discussion, I will say white culture and admit that I'm generalizing. White culture has been the dominant culture in the United States we don't need to rehash history. We get it. So there are some things that white people consider normal that non-white people don't experience, particularly Black people. I can't speak for people of color. I don't use that term very much because I hate it. And I won't speak for people of color. I can only speak for Black people. And I can't speak for Black people. I guess I can only speak as a Black person. But there are certain advantages, I guess, that white people have because they are the dominant race and the dominant culture. So what we consider norms in this country are really set and decided by white people for a lot of things. I'll give you a good example. My son is, obviously he's Black, and we live in a really nice, cute little suburb in Orange County. It's a very quiet, sleepy suburb, and there's a pool down the street, and it's gated. You got to have a card key to get in. Well, sometimes my son, he's 17, he forgets his card key. And when he does, he climbs the fence. Now, I tell him that he should not be climbing that fence because we live in a neighborhood where people will look at a Black boy climbing the fence into a private pool and see something different than he sees. What he sees is a kid who forgot his key card and doesn't want to go back home to get it. So I was saying, for you might be with a group of friends and they might do something like that and you might think it's completely innocuous, but it looks different for them to be jumping over that fence than it does for you to be jumping over that fence. So that's an example, I guess, of what this inherent advantages possessed by a white person means on the basis of their race in a society. Now, here is where I start to go off the rails here. In a society characterized by racial inequality and injustice, this is where I think the whole race conversation period breaks down, because it's all in how you look at life. And while I have seen racism, and you guys have heard my experiences, I've shared some of them growing up as a little Black girl in all white Canada and the East Coast, and I've shared my experiences there, but I have never thought of the United States as characterized by racial inequality and injustice. And I know, I hear you. Don't worry. You can stop screaming at your radio, your phone, whatever you're listening through. I hear you. Some people do see it as characterized, racial inequality and injustice, that our society is characterized by those things. I hear you and I get it. And I believe it. I believe that there are some people who live in a world where that world is characterized by those things. I don't think that that really is what the United States is characterized by. And I think that we've been fighting for 400 years to prove that. We've had a history of horrific offenses against Black Africans, against Native Americans, against whoever. We have a history against each other, just period. But we also have a history of fighting for equality and justice. To even have the option to say those words out loud is proof positive that we live in a pretty amazing country where we have the apparatuses to correct the mistakes we've made. The people in Hong Kong that are protesting right now, risking their lives, getting gassed, getting burned, getting shot by their own police force, those people are fighting just for the right to be able to say words like equality and justice out loud. So we're already a bajillion steps ahead of the game. So while I see racial inequality, and I see injustice, I don't think this nation is characterized by those things. Part of the reason I don't think that is because I get out around the country, and I've had the blessing to be embedded in different cultures over the years and to really live and breathe different communities. And I have seen the best of this country, and I've seen the worst. I think I've seen the worst, or almost the worst. But I've seen far, far, far more good people in this nation. And so I know that this nation is characterized by that, by people who help their neighbors, by people who care about their communities, by people who volunteer, by people who pay their neighbor's phone bill when when it gets cut off. Or some people stand up for animal rights, and some people stand up for the life of a child, and some people stand up for the rights of those born with Down syndrome. You know what I mean? There are people who are activists for green energy and the environment. We have the freedom and the ability to step out and march and persuade and scream and yell for the things that we want and we feel we deserve. And you know what, you guys? A lot of the times it works. I will point you to the civil rights struggle of the 60s. And look how effective it was. It required a lot of blood, and it required a lot of humiliation. And it was a period that none of us are real proud of when it comes to our national identity as Americans. But the flip side of that is that we came out on the other side with something really great, with representation for the Black community, with a new path forward. We got rid of Jim Crow, just like we got rid of slavery eventually. So the idea that America is inherently unequal and unjust, I don't buy it, even though I believe that there is racial inequality and I believe that there is injustice. Does that make sense? Okay. So here's the other thing that bothers me about the term white privilege. It lets us off the hook as Black people for anything. And I'm going to say some things that are going to offend some people, so gird your loins. Okay? To a certain extent, white America has the responsibility to understand that they don't understand everything. You get that? White Americans at least have the responsibility to say, I don't know if I agree with this. I don't know if I see this the same way as you guys do, but I'm just going to say, I simply don't understand, and I'm going to trust that what you're telling me is true. So I think there's a certain responsibility that some white Americans have, and they immediately shut down when we talk about the race issue. They immediately shut down when we talk about racial inequality or injustice because they feel blamed personally. And they know, oh, well, I'm not a racist. I would never think to treat anybody horribly like that. And so they take offense and they shut down, and then they tell you what you're saying isn't true. An example of this is I could do it on Facebook right now. I could go to my page and I could post a story about my husband driving while Black. That's a thing, DWB. Every Black person knows it. Every Black person has the talk with their kid. Even to say every black person has the talk, I will get a million responses from white people who will be like, well, we have the same talk too. It's just about being respectful. No, you don't have the same talk. You don't have the same talk as that I had with my son when I told him that jumping over the fence looks different to his neighbors than if he were a white kid. You don't have that talk. You might tell your kid don't jump over the fence because it's disrespectful and it breaks the rules, but you don't have the talk where you have to tell your kid to be aware of their race. It's offensive and I hate it. I could put a post about my husband getting stopped while black, and there will be 1,000 responses. Well, was his tail light out? Oh, well, I'm white and I was driving home and I got pulled over for no reason. It happens to me all the time. It doesn't. It's not the same thing. It happens. That's where you have a responsibility to step back, first of all, and say, I'm not blaming you for the DWB. I'm not blaming you personally. I'm saying it's a thing that happened and I'm commenting on it. So you need to step back and say, okay, first of all, this isn't a post about me personally. I need to stop being so narcissistic. And second of all, I might not understand this thing to be real. I might not understand this point of view, but instead of refuting it, instead of negating her thoughts, her feelings, I'm going to step back. I'm just going to remove myself from the conversation. I don't have anything good to add. That's not the same as saying, I've got white privilege and I'm going to just never say anything again. It's just saying, okay, respectfully, I just have no idea what you mean. I have no idea what you're talking about. So I feel that white people do a lot of that. But here's the other thing. Black people, we're not getting off the hook. I'm not letting y'all off the hook. Not letting us off the hook. Here is the thing. How much do we play a part in our own demise? And this is why I always say that I do not believe we are ready to have a real, honest conversation about race in this country, because it means both parties, between white and black, that's what I'm talking about right now. It means both parties have to be willing to come to the table and give up their right to be offended. That means white people can't immediately get defensive when a black person says, hey, this is my experience as a black American. This is what I experience when I'm driving around my neighborhood, wherever that may be, in the suburbs, in the hood, in the city. White people can't come in all guarded and angry about that. But black people need to come in and we need to admit that we have our own problems. And it's so easy to project onto white people and say everything that's wrong with our community is because of you. But I would never, there is no other area in life where I would ever suggest somebody do that as an intelligent response to discrimination or oppression. Because here's the thing, this is one of my favorite sayings, and I'm going to write this time down for my producer because he might have to bleep this. But this is my favorite saying. If you meet an asshole in the morning, you met an asshole in the morning. If you meet assholes all day long, you're the asshole. I believe that this can apply to the black community as well. If all we ever see is injustice, inequality, offense, oppression, anger, rage, unfairness, if that's all we ever see everywhere we look, maybe we're part of the problem. I said part of the problem. So there are certain circumstances which have led us to where we are, generally speaking, as a community. But there's another point where we have to be able to look at ourselves and say, what part do we play in how people see us? I'll give you an example. We used to live in Gary, Indiana, which has been the murder capital of the U.S. off and on. And so it's a dangerous place. Like, that's where I became a gun owner, actually. That's where I became informed about my Second Amendment rights. But we had problems with the police, like a lot of inner cities do. We had, well, to be honest, a very corrupt police force. And believe me, those police, it was not just white police that were corrupt. Like, it was just a corrupt department. But we did have some issues and complaints about racial profiling. A lot of almost all of the cops lived outside of Gary, and Gary's almost exclusively black, and then the surrounding areas are white. And so they were like coming in from the suburbs to police Gary. So there was that disconnect between suburban mentality policing inner city mentality, and it just created a lot of tension, and there was a lot of press around it for a while. And I remember reading a quote from one cop who didn't want to be named, but he said he was Hispanic, and he said, "Am I a racist? I don't know. But what I do know is that when I go to work every day in Gary, I see black people doing the most horrible things to each other. And it's all I see because it's my job. And I see black people killing each other, abusing their kids, abusing their girlfriends and their wives. I see the worst conditions. I see drug addicts and people who have beaten their grandmothers for $1. You know, he's like, I see horrible, horrible things. I see people who cuss at us, who yell at us when we're just going around trying to do our jobs and keep the good people of Gary safe. That's what I see. I see the ugliest parts of the black community, and it's hard not to apply that to everyone, because when you do the job long enough, it's the only filter you see through. I will never forget that. I will never forget reading that, because my first instinct to be was like, what the hell? How dare you? But then when I calmed down and I read what he was saying, I got it. Because I'm the same way. We're all the same way. We're all the same way. If we deal with enough angry people all day long, we feel like the whole world is angry. And if all we deal with is like happy and positive people, then we feel that there's more good stuff in this world. And that's the filter we see things through. Our experience informs how we look at other people. So on the one hand, was that cop admitting to being, prejudiced and stereotyping people? Yes, he was. But on the other hand, what he was also saying is he ain't lying. He ain't lying, folks. He's telling the truth. Go look at any inner city community and see how we treat each other. Black on black violence in Chicago is through the roof. And I know everyone gets tired of hearing that statistic because white conservatives pull that out of their pocket all the time. Like, look what I'm proving. That doesn't make what's happening there any less disgusting. We're doing that to each other. Ain't no white people going and putting a gun in some little gangbanger's hand and making him go to the playground and shoot up whoever happens to be standing around. So I don't like this idea that white privilege absolves us of the responsibility to ourselves as a community. You can't look at white people and say this is all their fault and they need to help us. I don't even know why you would want that, by the way. I don't even know how you can look at an entire community of people and say these people have no interest in uplifting us and empowering us and giving us equality, and then demand that those same people uplift us and empower us and give us equality. How can you trust them? I don't have that issue, by the way. I'm willing to work with anyone. And I believe that wherever I set my feet, I belong. I believe that with my whole heart. Listen to me. I have lived with rednecks. Like literally lived with rednecks. I have lived in the hood. I have lived in the country. I have lived in the suburbs. I have lived in the city. I have been with so many people in so many different places, and places where people would say, I don't belong. But you know what? I don't buy that. And I don't even think it for a second. Wherever I set my feet is where God plans for me to be. And it is more dangerous to be outside of God's will than it is to be in a dangerous place inside of God's will. So I don't buy this thing that there's white spaces and there's black spaces and there's just some places black people don't belong and we got to force our way in and make white people. No, just do it. Stop talking about it. If you want to go and work where white people work, then go do it. I have been called the N-word so many times in my life. I literally have lost count. That has never ever stopped me from working hard, getting a job. And maybe there have been jobs out there that I just don't know about that I didn't get because people were like, we don't like the way she looks. We don't like that she's black. Or we don't like that she's not black enough. You know, there may be those people out there, but I'm just saying, like, I don't know. And do you know why? Because this country is full of opportunity. And if I don't get one job, I just go out and look for more. And I keep going until I find what I need and find what I want. And that's the advantage of being American. And white privilege, who gives a shit? It hasn't stopped me from doing anything. It doesn't stop my kids from doing anything. And I would never, ever, ever, ever cripple them with a chip on their shoulder that will keep them from setting their feet in spaces they definitely belong. So this whole white privilege thing, come on. And then you've got poor white people. I mean, how privileged are they? I don't know. I know I have been in plenty of redneck communities, and trust me, you don't want that life. You do not want that life. Plenty of poor people, white people out there. Do white people get to live in a position of cultural dominance in this country? Yeah. And that's the way it goes, folks. That's the way it goes. The planet Earth, the history of humankind is filled with conquerors and the conquered, with predators and prey, with majorities and minorities. This is the worm turns. It goes round and round. It didn't start with America. This is how it is. The question isn't how do we knock white people down? The question is, how do we raise ourselves up? Stop looking to white people to do it for you. They got their own business to handle. Nobody's going to give you anything. And I don't know why we keep thinking that's what we should be asking for. We should not be asking for people to give us anything. This is what I loved it. I don't know if you know Stokely Carmichael, but he was a big figure in the 1960s in the civil rights movement. He changed his name, some African name, and moved to Africa somewhere, and that's where he spent the rest of his days. But he was a college student. I think he worked for the NAACP. I think he was one of the kind of the founding members of that, and he was. I just love watching old Stokely Carmichael video. He was so articulate. Like, nobody articulates ideas like that anymore. You know? Now I got to go to Twitter and hear Chelsea Handler like, I'm talking about my white privilege. Stokely Carmichael was an artist. You know, there was an art to making your arguments back then. That's why we quote Martin Luther King so much. That's why we quote Malcolm X so much. They were educated men. We don't talk like that anymore. So go back and listen to Stokely Carmichael. I love listening to him. But one of the things that he said that I've always remembered and held with me, and this is what fractured him from the civil rights movement, actually. He said that he did not believe that once the goals of the civil rights era had been achieved, he said he did not believe that we should be asking white people to hand over seats of government to us. That's because that's what the argument was at the time. It was the idea of, okay, we need some kind of reparations here. Maybe it's not financial reparations, but it's like you make so much of Congress black, or you promise this many seats at the political table, or this many jobs in the White House, or whatever, And a lot of people were floating that as a type of affirmative action, really. And Stokely was saying, we're not ready. We just got the right to go out in public without being harassed. Like, we just got the right to drink at the same fountain as white people. We haven't been educated the way that we deserve to be educated. So we shouldn't go marching into the halls of Congress and demanding a seat when we're not ready. We need to get educated. We need to prepare ourselves. We need to become the powerful people who can hold those positions once we get them. And everyone dismissed them. Everyone dismissed that. And now we have what we have. The Congressional Black Caucus, which does nothing for anyone except complain. Don't go to Google. But tell me right now what the Congressional Black Caucus means to your community. Tell me right now what the Congressional Black Caucus has done in your community, wherever you live. Tell me. Don't Google. Don't Google it. You don't know because they don't do anything. And that's what Stokely was saying. If you simply give people things simply based on their race, you're going to get a whole bunch of idiots in a whole bunch of positions they don't belong in. Let's not be those idiots. We don't need white people to step aside or step down or lower the bar. We need to step up. We need to step out and say, I don't care if you're uncomfortable with my presence. Wherever my feet are, that is where I belong. You have that privilege as an American. That's American privilege right there. And I don't understand this argument that white people kind of need to get on our level or something like that. Because you know what that says to me? You want white people to lower the bar. You want white people to kneel to you. And it's like, you don't want to stand up. We're always asking white people. We do so many crazy things. We're like, okay, commit to making so much of your staff black, or in Florida, because so many minority students were failing the basic skills in their public school system, they lowered the grading bar and they graded on a curve. And the SATs have been trying to do the same thing, which is grading based on your racial profile. The idea being to get more people, more minorities passed through the school system. There's a movement right now to welcome the Black vernacular into the language of business and the language of polite society. And I've read article after article, especially in The Root. The Root loves to like reprint this article over and over again. But the idea that the way Black people speak, should be acceptable in the corporate setting, should be acceptable in the professional setting, because it's a valid form of language, and it's a valid form of the English language. Like, why wouldn't you want to know how to speak the language of the corporate culture? I have news for you. The world is bigger than just America. You might actually go somewhere where they don't know the Black vernacular. You do need to speak in that style, with that type of affectation, or you do need to drop. White people do it too, by the way. White people do it too. You go home, we all do it. You go home, you drop a bunch of F-bombs, you cuss, you fuss. You don't talk that way at work. And it's the same thing. Why wouldn't we want to be professional enough and interesting enough to handle ourselves one way at work and handle ourselves another way at home? It can only give us an advantage to speak two different languages. Do you know what I mean? To speak corporate, to speak hood. I can speak both. Well, I don't really speak hood, to be honest with you, but I understand it. And obviously you can listen to me and know that I'm going to go into like a white corporate environment and sound just like everybody else. My point is that I don't know why we think that it's better for us to take the way we talk at home and put it in a corporate setting. That's not how the world works. And that's not how we should want to work. We should want to have that diversity of language, of culture, of understanding. Why would we lower the bar for Black students? Oh my gosh, how could anybody be in favor of that? Oh, you little poor little Black boy, you don't understand. Let's just make the lessons dumber. So you poor little dumb brown boys, they're just not as smart as white people. That's what that is. That's what that is. How can any Black person be in favor of that? We should be raising the bar. White privilege makes us think it's okay to lower the bar to our level. We keep saying it, get on my level, get on my level. You're kneeling. You're not even standing. I don't want to get on your level. I want to climb to their level. I do want us to be in the halls of Congress, in the White House, in Hollywood, in the music industry. I want us to be teachers. I want us to be the lawyers and the doctors. I want all of that. I want us to be the people that work at McDonald's, or the people that go to a construction site and make an honest living for their family. I want us to be all those people. And you know what doesn't help? When we keep saying white people need to lower the bar for us so we can get there. Get off your ass and jump over that bar. I think white privilege is an excuse. It's an excuse for Black people to not try, and it's an excuse for white people to pretend that they really care about Black people. Chelsea Handler's tweet is BS. Do you think Chelsea Handler really gives a shit about her white privilege? Do you think any white person who talks that garbage means that? No. Chelsea Handler could give it all up right now, y'all. She could give it all up. She's rich. She's famous. She has everything that we think a person could want. Influence, fame, money, a platform. She could give it all up tomorrow, y'all. She could give it to you. She could give it to me. She could be like, it would be truly revolutionary, you guys, if she went up there on stage and said, I am donating the proceeds of this entire special to point to whatever black comedian. Some black comedian that hasn't really had a chance. Maybe somebody who's just a startup just coming up. She could give that guy, that gal, everything. I'm not going to even tell a joke. I'm going to invite this string of black comedians who don't have a voice. I'm going to invite them onto the stage. And then afterwards, we're all going to go back to my house, and each one of them is getting a room in my house. In fact, I'm going to sign the deed over to them because I don't need this house. That's white privilege. And I know I only got it because of my white privilege. I'm going to sign it over. I'm going to empty my bank account and throw it in the air and let all the minorities catch it. She could walk away from the most egregious parts of her white privilege today. Do you think she has any intention of doing that? Do you think any white person who talks about their white privilege has any intention of doing that? It's virtue signaling. And it's unhelpful. White people, it's unhelpful. First of all, we're making fun of you. I don't know any black people who actually respect a white person who talks about how much they hate themselves. Have you ever met a person who talks about how much they hate themselves? You hate that person too. They're so boring and dumb. And it makes you suspicious. Like if somebody is like, I hate myself, it makes you think, well, geez, maybe I should hate you too. So it's uninspiring for white people to be like, I really hate myself. I wish I was a different color. I would never let my daughter say that about herself. I wish I was a different color. That's devastating. I don't know why we think it's okay for white people to do that. They don't mean it anyways. And it's just a way to say, I want to be on your side. And it really is, I don't want to assign evil intentions to those people. It's a way to say, I want to be on your side. But listen, actions speak louder than words. Actions speak louder than words. If you want to be on our side, then be our friends. Come to our churches. Hang out in our communities. Teach our kids. Treat us like people because that's who we are. We're just people. We're not a group. Listen to me. I don't sound like anyone else on the FCB radio network. We all have different points of view and different life experiences, but a lot of us are black. We're not just a monolith of people. We are individuals with individual experiences. Treat us like that. You don't need to go around announcing your weakness. It's so pathetic. I don't respect it at all. I think that's why a lot of this is the honest truth. I think that's why a lot of black people, why so many, not a lot, statistically speaking, the polls are saying about 30 something percent blacks. Which is huge for a Republican to approve of a Republican. It's up there. It's high. But I think that's one of the reasons why so many black people support Donald Trump, because he really doesn't make any apologies. And at the end of the day, there's like a begrudging respect for that. He's like, I'm not even going to play this game. I'm not a racist. I don't even need to say it. I'm going to do me, you do you. I think black people respect that. And in my life, that's how it's been, and I know that that's how it's been for my friends and family, my black friends and family. It's like when we come across white people, the most inviting and engaging white person is someone who's not apologizing for themselves. It's so awkward. You guys, it's so awkward I have been there, to be standing in front of a white person who is apologizing to you directly for their very existence. It's so weird. I don't like it and I don't respect it. And I am going to speak for black people now. I don't think most black people like it. I don't. It feels like another form of bigotry, to be honest. It really does. It feels like, oh, look, you're a black person. Okay, black person, I've been waiting my whole life to say this. It's just labeling me black so you can say something that you feel you're supposed to say to a black person instead of just like having a conversation. So is white privilege real? I think there is something that is real that is akin to white privilege. I think the term white privilege has greatly outsized its actual effect on society. But yes, there is a type, I guess, of white privilege, but I don't care. And I don't think you should either. And we have so many examples to look to today about why we really shouldn't get caught up in this mess. So many more than we've ever had. I mean, for heaven's sake, a black man was the most powerful man in the world. It doesn't get much better than that. And we've got black NFL owners and musicians and powerhouses in the entertainment industry. We've got black broadcast station owners. We're huge success stories in many parts of life. We don't need to be dragging on this white privilege thing. It's boring. Let's move on. Take control of your life. You live in a country where you can do that. Thank God for that. First of all, get on your knees and thank God for that. Start with gratefulness. Lead with gratefulness. It will inform everything else you do for the rest of your day, I promise you. And then stand up and take your place. No one can deny you what is for you. We don't live in that type of country. We don't. And if you are sitting there going, well, actually, if you're that person, well, actually, Carol, no. Grow up. If you think that, then go to Hong Kong right now. Come back and report. All right, you guys, this has gone on long enough. Thank you so much for tuning in. Let me know what you think of white privilege. Hit me up at realkiradavis on Twitter, or you can find me on Facebook at realkiradavis. Same way. Hit up my Facebook page. Leave a comment on the thread. I'm still working on my website and Patreon so that we can all actually have a real back and forth discussion and conversation together. I'm looking forward to that. And I've got some really fun bonus gifts for you and subscription rewards for you. So I'm really excited to offer those things. Thank you again, as always, to the FCB Radio Network for giving me a home and giving me a voice. And what else do I need to say? I don't know. Peace. Be good to each other. Exercise your American privilege this week, y'all. See how that goes. All right. I'll talk to you next week. Bye.